I got to hear more about Russell Wilson was very nearly an Eagle, et cetera. So I had heard that too. My understanding is that deal was basically done and Russ killed it.
Yeah, I think what I'd say is the Eagles really wanted him. I think they liked his style of play, and I think that makes sense, right? Because, it's similar to Jalen Hurts, especially when he was, in his prime and a little bit faster, I think, than now. And, yeah, my understanding is, at that point in time, Russ wanted to stay here. And then ultimately that's not what happened. But the Eagles were going gangbusters after quarterbacks for a couple of years. And until Jalen, they went into last season essentially saying, we're going to give him everything he needs so we can truly evaluate him. And then he showed himself to be what you thought coming out of the draft.
Well, but he's one of those guys, and this is something I just see so often in the NFL. You have to give those guys everything that makes them them. If you put people in a compromised position and then they don't succeed, you blame them at the end of it, and you've missed out on the opportunity. And you know what? This is was the most hot button name in the NFL for years, but Tim Tebow was like that. When they gave Tim Tebow all of the resources to be Tim Tebow, and I'm not a Tebow fan by any stretch. He said a lot of things that I don't agree with. But Tim Tebow, the player, when given the right opportunity and built around him, was pretty effective. Brought a team to a playoff series or to a playoffs and then won. Why would you take a quarterback and then not try to do what he's best at?
Absolutely. One of my pet peeves is the phrase system quarterback. We say that all the time, and it's usually used in a derogatory sense, right? They're all system quarterbacks, every single one of them. Now, some of them elevate the system that they're in. You look at a Tom Brady, you look at Aaron Rodgers. Some of them are great in the system when the system has the pieces. There's a whole tier of quarterbacks that are not quite truly elite, can carry you into a Super Bowl, who I think just need the right team around them to have a chance to win. I'm thinking of a Dak Prescott, for instance. Great quarterback, right? Truly elite, but not necessarily the guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl unless he has the pieces. And, we use system quarterbacks like there's four gods, that play that position, and then everybody else needs the system. They all need it, and they all need good players. And look at Brady's Super Bowl wins and losses. Look at the receivers on those teams. Look at the offensive lines on those teams. Look at the defense that he played with for the first 3 titles. I mean, the NFL is so connected and everything ties together that you need to give Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. You need to give him a Devontae Smith.
So where are you now on the build around a franchise quarterback versus build a roster and not pay the quarterback debate, which seems to be raging in the NFL?
Yeah, to me, it's the most fascinating thing, right? Because the guys in the tier that I was talking about, to me, you have to pay them. Because what's your alternative? How many Geno Smiths are there out there, where you have a guy on your roster who's just going to elevate into a really good quarterback when there's nothing in his history to predict that would happen. And, to roll the dice like that and be successful, it to me was classic Pete Carroll, John Schneider, But in general, I think if you have one of the top 10 or 12 or 14 quarterbacks in the NFL, you have to pay them. Ideally, you get them on a rookie contract, you take your shots, but then you're in the situation that Philadelphia is in now. You got a guy you don't want to let go of. You got a guy who can win you a Super Bowl, and you have an awesome team around him. So you pay him. But then in the next couple of years, you're going to see they won't have all those other great players around him. Guys are going to retire. Guys are going to get paid more other places. And that, to me, makes what the Chiefs are doing really interesting, right? Because you have a team that reconfigured on the fly last year and won another Super Bowl. You have a team with a quarterback that made that possible. And that quarterback has taken a slight discount to stay. And, I think a lot of the next few NFL seasons will be built around these massive quarterback contracts that are coming.
It's hard for me, though, because I like Jalen Hurts. I've told you that. I don't know whether if you pay him the same, $35 million, whatever it is a year that Patrick Mahomes, some of those guys are making, I don't know whether he can win with a roster that is going to start to, fall apart around him.
And so the question is, would you take a Super Bowl this upcoming season if that was the trade-off?
Yeah.
I think so, right? I mean, and so...
But I don't need to pay him for that, right? I mean, I don't need to pay him yet.
Yeah, you could have kept him for one more year, but then you have disgruntled, you have potential locker room issues. And I just think you take your shots while you got them. I think they got a 2 or 3 year window, where they could maybe do it. And the Eagles' philosophy is, I think, something all NFL teams say, but few do. And they don't want to be what they were under Andy Reid. No disrespect intended. A team that makes the playoffs consistently, but doesn't really have a chance to win except for the rare year. They want to be bad in 2020 and in the Super Bowl in 2022. And I think that involves risk taking. It involves, calculation, and it involves sticking to an organizational philosophy. But it means you're going to go up and down.
Have the Seahawks turned into that Andy Reid in Philadelphia team?
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. Now, can they surmount it this year? I like their chances better than in any recent year, but they did more reconfiguring, had an awesome draft, found the right quarterback, had another awesome draft, this past spring. And yeah, I think that they had become that team, and they were in the playoffs every year. But did you ever think in any of those years post, that moment in Arizona, sorry, to the 12s that are listening, that they had a real chance to win the Super Bowl? I can't think of a year where I felt that way.
I think maybe the next year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were still pretty darn good. They made the playoff. I mean, they were still in the next year or two, but you're right. Since then, it has not felt like they were a Super Bowl winning team. Playoffs, yes, but not at that sort of elite level. And I don't know that I feel that they are yet either, but I see sort of a path to getting there again.